sponsors Indica Cream, Ramraj, Mritu Towels, presents Galatta Thug Life Celebrations. Powered by Prithvi Innovias, The Chennai Silks, Darling, Surya Books, Jai Chandran. Associate Partner, Inno6.
Hello, Mr. Maniratnam.
The lights off.
Okay, good.
You have a new look.
I know it's for Thug Life. I think it's like a.
Thought so.
So, but in case you don't want to talk about Thug Life, we can talk about your next film.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, you want to do that?
It'll be a very short interview.
A sleek Beverly Hills cop, James Bond, like Dirty Harry kind of city-based, action film. Is Thug Life that film? When Jingicha came, there was one question like, what is Maniratnam's special affinity for wedding songs? what is, because you're
Like a project report it was, and we used to carry it from producer to producer trying to sell the film. I'm opposite to what Kumar Raja is saying.
Yeah.
Absolutely bang opposite. Good actors need a director more than competent actors.
Okay. Let's talk about Sugar Baby, which is the latest song to be released as of this interview. Pardon my French, but I was like, what the F is happening here, right? For the first, Rakama is, that's not a wedding song. Sorry, I'm cutting off.
I caught you.
You caught me, yeah. Title sponsors Indica Cream, add color to your life. Ramraj Mridu Towels, super soft, super absorbent. Galatta presents Thug Life Celebrations. Powered by Prithvi Innovias. Prithvi Innovias, your perfect partner. The Chennai Silks, let the celebrations begin. Darling AC Tiruvizha, India Vilaye Miga Kurainda Mada Tavanayil AC. Surya Guides, Surya School Guides for all classes. Jai Chandran, Kurainda Vilai Nirainda Taram Tangal Tevegal Anithum Ore Idathil, Jai Chandran. Associate sponsor Inno6, Bharat Ka Next Gen Crypto Exchange. Hello.
Hello.
Welcome to Galatta Plus.
You have a new look.
I know it's for Thug Life. I think it's like a.
Thought so.
Yeah. So, but in case you don't want to talk about Thug Life, we can talk about your next film.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, you want to do that?
It'll be a very short interview.
Emma, I was going through some of the earlier interviews when apparently you were quite a chatty person. And you answered a very difficult question, which usually I've never heard you do this. And it was very interesting to hear you say this, which is like, somebody asked you, what was your favorite scene from Dil Se, Uire? Around that time they had released. And you said it was that scene where Shah Rukh and Manisha are in Ladakh. And then she's going to leave the next morning. And at night, they have one small conversation about their likes and dislikes. And you said that really liked me. Now, transpose this to Nayagan. Do you have, I know there's probably going to be many scenes that you like, but is there one scene that says, okay, this is my favorite scene?
Nayagan has got more moments, pauses, and those are the real crux of the thing. There are a lot of scenes which are important, but what made it special for me are those smaller moments, where Will Naikar gives the pan to his son. Those things that was spontaneously happening during the set. Those elevated the entire film, I thought. Those were the. But if you want me to pick one particular scene of Nayakan, I would pick that Baba Mar Gaya scene,
The first time.
The first time, that is where, to me, that is where I got hold of the character when we're writing it, that this is the person who will do something and then go and reach out to the other person who's been harmed and see something that can be done to the family.
Okay.
That gave it the opening for the entire character and for the film. So I think that was very special.
Right. So, obviously, the whole talk around Thug Life has been your reunion with Kamal Haasan, and justly so, because, a lot of people have been saying, okay, when is this going to happen? When is this going to happen? But I asked Kamal Haasan this question, which is like, okay, you and Maniratnam have been discussing for a long time about, you've been talking about cinema, you've been talking about all these things, and finally he comes to you and says, okay, this project materializes. At what point did you realize that? Because thinking about a project, wanting to do a project, having it in your head is one thing, but seeing something and realizing, wow, okay, this looks like this might finally be happening is another thing. At what point during the shoot did you realize, wow, looks like this is going to be what I thought after all?
Well, if it happens during the shooting, then it's a bit too late.
It's too late?
It's too late.
Okay.
It should happen at the idea stage.
Okay.
And there have been several ideas that I've had and he's had. We've talked about it. But for some reason, it kind of didn't materialize, and sometimes he's busy, he's doing something similar, and I'm doing something else. So even in for this project, there were quite a few ideas that
Thug Life.
yeah, we had discussed, and I had a few things, but he felt that something else can be thought of and things like that. So while we are, you know, contemplating on a few, then you land on something which has a potential, which has a germ, and which could develop into a film. So that's where it came from. He had written a full script called Amar Hai.
Yeah.
So when I told him an idea, and we thought that it could be a very difficult project which we can do later, then I asked him to give me the script. And there's one element in this
Yeah.
script that really
Yeah.
connected, and it also has some kind of a connection to Nayakan, so it kind of triggered off a few things, and then this kind of developed.
Right. So when you're saying that you really know if it's too late if you think that a project is going to be good only when the shoot stage happens, like, so ideally you're saying that once the idea is there and the writing is happening, at that point itself you realize that, okay, I think this is going to like be what I thought. Is that what you're saying?
To be honest, every film that you do, that's what you think.
Okay.
Otherwise you wouldn't be making the film.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
you have written something and you think it is good, you think it is what you want to talk about, what you want to do, and therefore you invest a year of your time into that. Okay, how well we are able to execute it can be good, can be bad, can be mediocre. It can happen any which way, but the effort and the conviction is there right through.
Right. But in general, why do projects then, which start promisingly and look promising on paper, why do they go wrong?
Depends on what you call wrong, what you call promising.
Okay.
Maybe in the promising stage itself the flaw is there.
Right.
So it could be the thought, it could be the idea, it could be the execution. It takes very little for a film to go wrong. One moment, a different kind of an ending could take away all that you have built. And you might have built nonsense, but if the end works, it might still work. So those are there for a product. Several variables are there, and so you try to do it as well as you can, go with your belief, your conviction, and then take it forward, and then accept whatever happens.
Right. The first time you were supposed to work with Kamal Hassan, you went to tell him that, listen, boss, I've got this offer to do this film with you, but I don't want to do this remake of this Hindi film.
Yeah.
That is the offer that I got. But I have two ideas, which is, you guys, one was, of course, the Varadaraja Mudaliar story, which fascinated you when you were a student in Bombay. The other idea was a sleek Beverly Hills cop, James Bond, like Dirty Harry kind of city-based
Action film.
action film. Is Thug Life that film?
No, it is not.
It is not. But so you never made that film at all?
No, it didn't make it. Now a lot of people are making it very well, so there's no need for me to go there. Thug Life is really an emotional film. It's set in the world of crime, but it really deals with people and their emotion. So if you look at Nayakan, it is about Velu Nayakar and how the world around him shaped him. Whether what happened to his father and what happened to the old man who picked him up and taught him what he learned or what he imbibed, and then the bad cop, and then the rich businessman. All of them, including his own daughter, kind of dictated how his life will be. So entire thing is an individual with an external world. That is what this, I think, is the opposite, in the sense that this deals with that he is born already into it. He is in the middle of it, and what happens within this world.
Yeah.
Not the outside, but within this world, that forms the story. That it is the dynamics is what happens in this world of crime.
Right. So it's not about how he became a gangster.
It is not. It is not. It is about you are one and you are living that life, and within that, how it is still the same kind of emotion, still the same kind of beliefs, the affection, the disappointment, all that element that comes into play. So it's still a drama, and action is there, definitely, but it's a drama that really is the key to the film.
Right. In the trailer, there is one shot that reminded me of Nayagan, which is this little boy standing in a doorway, which is a frame within a frame, which is a visual element that you carried throughout Nayagan.
Yeah.
Did it accidentally happen, or did you want that?
No, sometimes the geography, provokes it, and it is not just the frame within the frame that kind of evokes that. It is a boy who is with an oversized shirt, standing there alone, the same kind of age, kind of reminds you of that. But
Yeah.
it's just a trigger, it's
Tri-
just
yeah.
a small element into it.
But did you want that to kind of? No,
Not really, I know.
Okay,
It was
because
not planned and such, but it came naturally.
yeah, because even in Nayagan, if I remember right, I think the boy is wearing his father's shirt or
Yeah,
something
yeah.
like that. When that
That's
big.
what. That's why it reminds you of Nayagan.
Yeah, so the big talk has been your reunion with Kamal Hassan, but obviously there's another great reunion happening here, which is with Ravi K. Chandran, who shot either the Yuva and Kanatil Muttamital with you, and these are very, very gorgeously shot films, superbly crafted films. So I wanted to ask you about the way you work with a cinematographer, because that is what the audience sees. And obviously there are many people, there's a production designer, there's other things, and also all contribute to the making of a scene. But what we see is, or at least what we register is, the director and the cinematographer working in tandem and producing an image. So I wanted to ask you about one of my favorite images from the trailer, which is, there is this railway station bridge, and Kamal is standing at one end, and there's a whole bunch of people charging at him from the other end. Obviously any scene can be covered in any number of ways, right? Or shot in any number of ways. And I like, somebody might want to emphasize the grandeur of the moment, rather the bigness of his opposition by doing an overhead shot or something like that. But what I really liked was the shot starts with Kamal's hand like this, and like he's making the move, and that's in focus. And then when he lowers the hand, the gangsters or whoever are charging at him, they come into focus. It's almost like that power of that single hand is kind of equivalent to take on all those people, kind of a thing. How do you work with? The reason I gave you this image is just to maybe trigger how you work with a cinematographer to produce an image.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a simple one way it happens. This one, for example, we did an announcement video of Thug Life when we launched the film. In that, we had this action sequence, and there we had this similar image. So it kind of defined the way this film will be shot. There's several elements within the film which has the same school. Where it is really tight and close, and the rest of the world is at a distance, and they come to you or you come to the world. So it is a style which kind of evolves as you start shooting, and we have to be in some kind of a sync. We have to search and be in some kind of a sync, and then it evolves. It's not as though it's fully conceived before and we are executing it. We talk about it, but we search, and the location and everything else together gives you one element falls into place, one style kind of evolves and falls into place early. That defines the rest of the film.
Right. If I see the scene paper of that particular thing, will it say so and so's hand is up there, and then it's this thing out of focus? Or all those things there, or
I write the scene paper for myself.
right?
Okay, it is not for somebody else that I have to write.
Right.
So I don't write much of description. The dialogues will be there, and the description invariably I'll write in English, and it is bare. Some of them is in your mind, enough for the departments to take what is required. Now that is all we need to say. I don't have to explain it, in more detail, because what you do is you try to stage it on your table in your office. Whereas when you come there are elements that will come in,
Right.
and I don't want to be tied to one particular thought.
Right.
I will have a thought maybe when I'm writing, or maybe the day before I'm trying to shoot that scene and thinking of how I'm going to shoot. You'll have an idea, but it is not a locked idea. It is, you let it evolve, and sometimes you surprise yourself.
One last question about Ravi K. Chandran, because I want to go back to Kanatil Muttamital, and again one of my favorite shots. Again a focus change. Amuda is she runs away from home, and she's at the railway station, and somebody finds her. I think it's the ticket master, somebody like that. He finds station master. He finds her, and he calls Madhavan and Simran, and they come there. So the scene is set on a platform, and Amuda's here. The first thing you show is her and Simran together, because and the distance is really big, mother and daughter. and then the focus changes and it becomes middle focus, and Madhavan steps into the background, the child runs to him.
Yeah.
Again, is that a something you decide on the location? Because there's a, if you want to interpret that scene, you can say that the father is almost always the mediator between the mother and and the daughter. That's the visual way of showing that, right? Those kinds of things.
No, those are conceived. I mean, when you have a scene to shoot, you try to decide how you're going to shoot that scene. At that point of time, the staging, which is what we call it, staging, how you're going to stage it, who is going to be where, how are you going to tell the story, which is the character that comes in first interaction and all that. So it is, sometimes it is part of storytelling. It becomes a visual form, but it's still storytelling predominantly. And this focus shift is a very tricky thing. It's been done too many times. It's a very cliched thing. So one is careful when we get into it. You try to make it as imperceptible as possible. And nowadays we have it a little easier because all of them have come in remotes, all the controls. So the focus shift, before we used to do this way with the camera, now we are able to do it this way. Be careful, most of the time we don't want to be caught. People watching it should not know that the focus is shifting. The focus should shift because the attention is shifting, because storytelling is shifting. So we try to be as, careful about it. So we don't try to put it out in the front.
Yeah.
Whatever helps the narrative, in Namuda's scene, it was conceived that way. It was that she's alone in an empty platform, a lone figure, a child standing there, and then there is this woman who has come in search of it, was planned that way, and his entry was planned. So it becomes an execution.
Right. Again, that scene paper had just the bare bones description. This was not there in the...
No, it would have been there in my mind, in the sense, I don't know whether it written down, but the fact that she was alone, and the mother will come first, and there will be that silence, there will be those close-ups, and then he comes in between, and the relationship happens.
Okay. When you started, the bound script that people talk about today, that was not really much in vogue. Did you always start with the bound script thing, or at some point you started doing bound scripts?
No, my first film was bound.
Bound.
Bound type, like a project report it was, and we used to carry it from producer to producer trying to sell the film. So it was a bound script. The next two films were not totally mine. I tried to get involved into it in the scripting stage, but it was both Unaru and, Pagalnelu was mine. And De Koil were not mine. But Maniratnam again was a bound script. The script that was not bound when I started was Nayakan, strangely. And maybe it was for the good, because we had very little time to prepare for it.
Right.
From the time we decided to do a project, and the date was less than 4-5 months, 3-4 months. So we had very little time. I had worked on the script, and I knew how I wanted the film to finish, but I didn't know how I'm going to finish. So that happened during the process. Agni Nakshatram, I had a full script when I went in.
But why do you say maybe it was for the good? Do you think sometimes if you have a bound script, you think too much just along those lines?
Ideally, you should have a bound script because you have a fallback, you have everything there. But sometimes with, like I was telling you, you're saying a friend's project is delayed. But the delay could help you. It'll help you to fine tune it more, could, polish it, things could fall into place. So there is always room for improvement in your script.
Yeah.
So if there is a possibility of that evolving organically, then it kind of works for the better.
Yeah. So one of the times I was talking to Tyagarajan Kumar Raja, he told me something very interesting. He said that, I want my the people who are there, I want them to listen to the script in my voice. I want the emphasis, the something to be mine. Not in a dictatorial way, but that is the way he wants. The first time that registers, he wants them to register the way that he has envisioned the film. Obviously, again, there is no one way to do these things, but when you share a script with your collaborators, your actors, how do you ensure that the Maniratnamness is there, but I know that you also like to give freedom to them. So how do you balance the two?
I'm opposite to what Kumar Raja is saying.
Yeah.
When a script is not yet formed, when it is still evolving and it's an idea stage, at that time, if I have to pitch, if I have to narrate a story to either the artist or to the technicians that I'm working with, then I'm very comfortable with narrating it, narrating it in detail. And sometimes when I'm narrating, things fall into place. It
But like new ideas come
new,
in.
yeah, and it kind of, what needs to come out comes out in a very logical way and things like that. So at that time, it is very easy for me to narrate. But once I sit and write the script, write the dialogues, write everything, I don't have the patience to narrate it. I don't want it to be my voice. I want it to become theirs. So ideally, I would like them to read the scenes and take it in, not me telling each scene in description and, like reading out the scene. So we do the reading, but with the actors. Once we have given the scenes papers to them, they've learned. So they bring them together and we do readings. At that time, they have something that they can invest in.
Right.
They bring in their inputs, and then we kind of collaborate and see how it can be. So there is somewhere I'm looking for investment from an actor to become a character.
Right. See, every director who's worked as long as you have, there is a certain. I go to a Maniratnam movie because there are certain things that I know will be Maniratnam-ish, Maniratnam-esque or whatever it is. Like you mentioned the drama in the thug life within the crime world, for example, because your relationship drama is what drives most of your films. How do you ensure that that is not lost? Because if that investment from the actor or the thing, because at that moment, how do you know it's not
That's the job. I'm
okay?
paid to do this.
Right.
How can I lose it?
Right.
What I want them to invest in is how to kind of portray it, how to kind of convert it into action, into pauses, into expressions, into their eyes.
Or maybe the costume designer, clothes or whatever it is.
No, even that is a part of the making.
Right.
You have to decide what kind of palette you want. You work with your DOP, your production designer, and what the scene is and what kind of costume colors will fit into it. That is all a part of your prep.
Yeah.
So that is completely, the more you work, the better it becomes.
Right.
But in terms of actors, I mean, it's your job to make sure that the drama is not lost, that whatever you're trying to say. And sometimes I find it more with good actors is when you have to be very, very cautious, because they tend to be so good, you can get carried away with them and lose the crux of your scene or where you want to underline. So there you have to be very careful. I think sometimes I always tell that good actors need a director more than competent actors.
Okay. Because of the
Yeah,
amount they bring in.
they can be, it can be very seductive. They do some things which you can feel the character's mind, that what goes through his mind, and it's really fascinating. But maybe that scene doesn't need that.
Right.
Maybe the pitch is different, maybe the emphasis is different, and there's going to be other things. There's going to be camera that moves, which is telling it, and there's going to be music that's going to come later. So all that is in mind. So if an actor does everything out, then the scope for the others, dynamics change.
Right. I don't know how to ask this question, but STR, Simbu, he seems to have a Maniratnam repertoire that he's always been a good actor and I've always liked him a lot. I've enjoyed his commercial films a lot. He's got a presence, everything is there. But in Chakachandanam, for instance, I really enjoyed the Simbu scenes a lot. He brought a lot of a wild energy to his thing. How much of direction do you do there? Is this like a
Yeah, I think you have to direct. You have to tell which is, and they all look to collaborate. They want you to say. It's not as though somebody is going to say, "Okay, I'll do it." No, it's not that.
yeah.
They're looking for, and you have to feed them the correct inputs. You have to just guide them into paths that you think that scene requires.
Right.
So it was, as long as there's a communication. That's all I see when I work with an actor. Is, a lot of people understand what I'm trying to say, but whether they're able to reflect it, whether they're able to convert it into action.
Okay.
They might take it in, but nothing might come out, and so it becomes a gap in terms of communication. Whereas with people with whom I have a sync, when I tell it, they grasp it very fast, Even sometimes when I don't even have to say it fully, they get it and they convert it,
Right.
and they're able to execute. So that makes it very, pleasant or very productive.
Is that why many directors choose to work with a set of actors? I mean, around the world. Do you think that's one of the reasons?
It is true for not only actors, for technicians, for everybody,
Yeah.
that you're trying to put in together, and if it is right for it, if that actor is right for this role, then it's a pleasure when there is an understanding. You know that the what an actor can bring to the table. It makes you more comfortable with trying to push your own boundaries,
Yeah.
because you know somebody can carry it. So it is an advantage if you know the person you're working with.
Right. We'll start talking about songs. I have a few questions. When Jingicha came, there was one question like, what is Maniratnam's special affinity for wedding songs? What is, because your Bombay, you have all these, but different types. Like Rakama is, that's not a wedding song. Sorry,
Thank
I'm
you.
cutting
I
off.
caught you.
You caught me. Yeah. What I meant, the Roja song, like
Rukumani.
Rukumani. Yeah. See, it's kind of similar names. I'm also getting old. So this is like Rukumani is a very different kind of wedding song. This one, the Bombay songs, very different song. So the thing is, when your Jigicha comes, obviously you can't say what context it is coming and things like that. But what is it that attracts you to this particular kind of celebration, the song?
I think if a
Sarattu Vandiyilla.
yeah, true. If wedding becomes a part of your narrative, then it's a excellent place to bring music into it. Wedding is celebration. There's no wedding without music, whichever form it is. So it opens itself very, comfortably to, bring in music and dance and bring that joyous emotion, very easily. And it is also possible to tell stories within those weddings. While the background, all this is happening, there might be some other layer that you can place in. It need not necessarily be a song. For example, in Nayagan, there is a wedding sequence in which he meets the other, heads of other families. So that also can happen.
Yeah.
So it is a platform which allows you to bring a lot of elements together in your film, and it works very beautifully with a song in it.
Yeah. One of your mantras, and this you've been saying this for a long time, and this is something you've been practicing also, is that I want my performances to be real, grounded, naturalistic. That's your thing, right? But then there are these passages in some of your films where one abstraction happens, and I'll name that scene in Ravanan where Aishwarya Rai is trying to run away. Vikram stops her. Now that scene can be just staged like, let's say, a chase, for instance, right? It's like like she's running away, he catches her and brings her back, right? But you transform that into not just choreography, but a kind of an I'm sorry, I forget the name of the choreographer, but it was a very, very famous, legendary choreographer,
Asta Debu.
Asad Debu. What makes you say, at that point where I want to cross my naturalistic movie and go into this scene where the whole thing is being expressed in a very abstract and surreal kind of form? I'm not necessarily that, but there are other passages in your films as well, so.
Now, in this particular passage, for example, it is a song. It is a Kartichiriki song that is happening.
Right.
And this is one thing where we had both the choreographer Asad Debu and an action director operating on the song at the same time. So we had that element. So it was song. So it was treated lyrically, though it is a part of the drama. The song kind of gave you the liberty to become abstract, to become poetic, to become lyrical. So it was conceived that way, and kind of otherwise it becomes just another scene. So it was possible to blend in music and the story into one phase, and so that is why that took place. And wherever it is possible, you try to do that, and you wanted things to be rooted because I can connect to it. It looks like it has happened or it could happen, so just make it all probable. But I think in Indian films has this huge advantage of songs that lets you be abstract.
Right.
That you can take a parabola and come down gently and continue where you are. So I think it's a fantastic strength that Indian cinema has, and if possible you should use it well.
Okay. And You know, like speaking of songs again, let's talk about Sugar Baby, which is the latest song to be released as of this interview. I started listening to it, and pardon my French, but I was like, what the F is happening here, right? For the first 4 or 5 lines, kind of a thing. And then that drone kicks in, that I don't know what that instrument is, but that thing really becomes very prominent. And then the song goes to a higher octave. And then when it becomes a kind of a club number with the jazzy brass kind of stuff, I was like, okay, this is really, like, it kicks in. So when I listened to the second song, everything kind of came together. I have a bunch of questions about this. One, when you give the brief, what was the brief to Rahman?
My story.
That's so,
Told him the idea of the story, and he came up with this. He not only just gave me the tune, he got somebody. He had written the first few lines. He had it recorded, so it was a song. You know, the opening of the song was what he gave me. You know,
Right.
and I had to see how I can use it, and then find a way which I think, you know, this is a kind of film which is set in a crime world where, you know, it is easier to integrate this kind of a sound into the narrative, into the story that you're telling, into a world of crime, and it kind of blend it, you know, into the film. So it becomes the storytelling kind of dictates what kind of, you know, song will fit into your film.
Right. But so when you heard the song, it already had some instrumentation and all
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it was not just a bare tune
He
kind of.
hardly ever gives you bare tune. He produces stuff and gives you. So it is up to you to decipher it, you know, take it apart in your mind and see whether you are okay with the basic tune, you know. So he produces in such a way that it's, and you hear it's just fantastic. So you have to, you know, see whether it fits into your scheme of things.
Right.
Title sponsors Indica Cream, Ramraj, Mritu Towels, presents Galatta Thug Life Celebrations. Powered by Prithvi Innovias, The Chennai Silks, Darling, Surya Books, Jai Chandran. Associate Partner, Inno6.